I've got a question for you. In a bacon and egg breakfast, what's the real difference between the chicken and the pig? And the answer is, the chicken is involved, but the pig is committed. What we're talking about today is about commitment. And this step about commitment is, yes, about losing your life and getting a brand new life. Jesus said in John 10:10, he said, I came so that they, the people who believe, can have real and eternal life, more and better life than they have ever dreamed of. The commitment step on the recovery road is very important because it's about trading in our old self for a new self. It's about switching from our plan to God's plan. And let's just be honest, we all have our plan. We have our agenda, our own deal. We think we can run it, but eventually our plan goes sideways and it leaves us stuck. And this is something you might have noticed before as we get stuck in relationships, we get stuck in habits, stuck in our grief, we get stuck in anger, get stuck in our work or in our addiction to pleasure or possessions or power. And we can't seem to ever get out of it, and so we're like gerbils in the cage on the wheel. We're going really, really fast, but we're getting nowhere. If you discover that you're stuck, then you discover you don't have the power to change. So you start feeling guilty that you're stuck. And you say, I wish that I could get out of this, but I can't. And eventually guilt turns to anger because you say to yourself, I should be able to change, but you don't have the power. When you don't, then your anger turns to fear, and you pretty well say, I am never going to get out of this. You start feeling sorry for yourself. You resign, and you say, I give up. And now you're back where you started, with more guilt, and it just goes on and on. The cycle goes round and round. So how do we get out of that stuckness? These are some of the things I want us to think about today. What we've been talking about for the first couple of weeks in Recovery Road is that step one, I admit I've got a problem, that I am not God. That's the reality step. Step two is the hope step. I'm not only powerless, but I also can state the truth, and that is God exists and that He has power and will help me out. But you know, like I said this past weekend, it's not enough to just know that God will help you. You have to take action. So today, that's where I want our focus to be. You got to make a decision. You got to cross the line. And you'll notice in your notes, the third step is the commitment step, and it's C. C equals consciously choose to commit all of my life and will to Christ's care and control. Because as Jesus said, blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. And if you missed this past weekend, please go get the podcast. It'll help you understand this even more. Jesus made a bunch of promises, but they were all very profound. Here's one that I love and applies so much to where we are today. In Matthew 11:28 through 30, he says, Come to me, all you who are weary and overburdened, and I will give you rest. He says, Take my yoke upon you. Yoke, as in something that ties horses together and allows them to carry something. He says, Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, because he says, my yoke is easy and my burden is light. This is the same Jesus who hung up for all of our hang-ups. He says, come to me. It is an invitation from God. I'm going to make your life lighter. It will give you a sense of rejuvenation. I'm going to give you a new life. You've got to be careful and pay attention to what I do and do what I do. He says, if you will trade your life in for my life, your life will be better. I mean, what a deal. You know, this past weekend, we handed out these things, these delicious chocolate truffles. But you know what I just talked about and not doing anything about it is like getting a chocolate truffle like we did this past weekend and never opening it. It's beautiful on the outside, but it's way more tasty on the inside. God says, I want to give you the gift of release and relief and recovery. But maybe you've done nothing about it. You haven't opened the gift. So, what keeps us from taking the third step? This is important. Why don't we do it? Why do I keep procrastinating from giving my problems to God? Why do I delay surrendering my life to the care and control of Christ? I want you to examine that. Think about it. In fact, talk with your spiritual partner there, and we'll get back together in just a few minutes.